the month away was really kind of an end of the year sabbatical for me. So end of my work year, start of my personal year is like kind of how I was thinking of it. And I really wanted to reward myself because I've had my business, the PR handler, now since 2020 officially. I
Okay.
had the brand since 2018, but at that time it had been 4 years of me like hustling and figuring out how to get my company off the ground and be stable. And I realized like I had never formally taken like a vacation. Yeah, like I set my own schedule and I take days off or,
Right, right. But
none
like,
of my days look the same, but I had never like granted myself like a vacation, you know?
wow.
And also, I realized like, oh, like companies, you go work for a company, they pay your vacation. I was like, you know what? Let me see how the PR handler can pay for my vacation.
I know that's right.
So that's what I did, and it was amazing. I spent some of the time really thinking a lot about what I've accomplished in the PR handler over these past 4 years. Um, some of the bigger wins and challenges, some of the best kind of stories that have come out of my work, some of the more intrinsic values that have been garnered from this practice, such as like just building very deep and fruitful relationships.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Eric Taylor, Astrology, back with another amazing podcast. And today, I've got a special treat for you. This woman is a publicist, a creative extraordinaire, a producer of all types of a myriad of creative events, and she's a powerhouse actress and a Pisces. I introduce you today, Miss Jessica Gillespie. How are you, Jessica?
Hi, I'm so good, Eric. Thank you for having me on.
Well, welcome. I am so excited. And oh my gosh, I got to just jump right into astrology because I think it's so fascinating because she's definitely my soul sister. Miss Jessica is a Scorpio rising, the Libra moon in the 12th house, and a Pisces sun sign, and a former client. So that is really fascinating. But so okay, tell everybody because we'll get into the PR publicist stuff, but I want to know about this engagement and producing and this creative. Like, so what type of artists and people do you work with? And just share with the audience what type of events do you put on and where?
Well, that is such a great question and a good one to open with. I have been so fortunate over these past probably 12 or 13 years now to work in the PR industry and work for some really big agencies and small boutique agencies where I've had a chance to work with a myriad of different types of clients. Started out in the consumer space, food and beverage, and then moved over into more lifestyle and retail. And then finally got into kind of like food and beverage on the smaller scale or like bars and restaurants here in the city. And that's when I kind of started working with a lot of people who I would see very regularly. Not only would I be, working with those particular clients, but then meeting their clientele. And Chicago is a very multicultural, multi-layered, people who live here um, have a lot of different things going on. There's micro communities all over the city of people who are just living and working and playing in their interests. And so that also means too that people have like lots of side projects. So just being in those environments is sort of how I became like ingrained or getting in the mix of helping people to produce various aspects of work that they're doing, whether it was events to introduce people to like a new brand or new products that they were launching, or finding out ways to help people market their live performances and shows. Even being like a connector and helping people to find collaborators. Um, and just the engagement piece, I think, is getting the people who attend to like actively participate in something. So the way that I've been doing that the most, I think, has been through just small group talks, talk series, panels, sort of fireside chat conversations about everything from arts and culture, wellness, travel. Um, yeah, I hope to do one around astrology soon.
Hey,
That's my
that's
plan in
awesome.
2025.
You let me know if you need you need the big E. He will have to fly
Yeah, that
out
would
to
be
Chicago and put
amazing.
it on for the city. So this is fascinating because doing what you do you find it is Black History Month, and I made the intention, and I was so excited to do this, that on my podcast this month that I would only have on Black guests. And I'm kind of curious, how do you feel when you are kind of, obviously I'm sure you work with all different cultures and ethnicities, but when you're doing Black events, like how does that spark you in a different way? Is there this like feeling of coming back home? Do you feel like there's more openness for the networking? And do you feel like sometimes you're allowed to express your creativity and expertise in a different way with a cultural twist as well?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like really empowering actually. When I was first starting out, I didn't have a lot of Black clients. When I was working in the big PR agency spaces, I might have worked with other people on the client accounts who were like, kind of at the lower level or like account services level type of thing. But it feels amazing to be in a position now to very intentionally elevate Black voices and amplify Black culture and brands and our ideas and products, especially things that are really positive for the community. I work with people here in the city who are doing things in the literary space. Like, for example, I had a new client last year who does like this big kids lit fair. And it's just like this 2 day like book extravaganza, but it's all like books that have Black representation, and it's on
Wow,
the south
love
side of
that.
Chicago in Pullman. It's such a cool event. And not only is there a huge book fair, but there's like creative workshops. And last year I jumped into one of the workshops and I made a zine. And there's also like theater for the kids, like Shakespeare theater for the kids. And there's lots of vendors and people there that are selling their wares, all Black. And so it's amazing for me to be in a position where I can work with clients like that who maybe can't afford, working with some of these like really big PR agencies or even the smaller ones I'm very competitive with here. And a lot of those clients come to me through friends. So it has even like a deeper meaning for me to be able to be in my network like that and creating impact in that way. And it has made me over these years a referrals only business because
Nice.
I work with my friends and then my friends refer me and so on and so forth. And so I've created this nice web um, of community around me that I just continue to get to amplify and support through my own services, but also bringing other people from my network into, these spaces like the Lit Fair. I had several people that I brought there who I'd worked with in the past. So it kind of feels like an all in the family type of type of thing now, where I get to know my clients on a more personal level.
That
Uh,
is so beautiful and
yeah.
perfect. And that kind of aligns, right? You've got the Pisces Mercury in the fifth house, which deals with high school, college, but it's overall kind of creativity and education. And when you talk about the lit fair and things like that, and engaging in the community and working with the network of so many creatives, we really literally see that in your chart. And it's so fascinating. So now I'm very curious about the acting, but before we get there, who was 10-year-old Jessica? And could she have ever imagined the publicist, the engagement, producing, creative, and the actress? Could 10-year-old Jessica ever
Oh my
envision
gosh.
any of
Yeah.
this?
I think the answer is yes. Like I was definitely imagining the work that I'm doing now. I just didn't have a name for it.
Yeah.
10-year-old Jessica was um, a very like vivacious, energetic 10-year-old. I was just very active. And I asked my mom actually when we did our birth chart session, because this was a question that you asked me in the original intake. And my mom was saying that this was kind of a time where I started getting like really busy. And I had, I was very active in school. I was taking on extracurricular things. I was in Girl Scouts. I had like a really, strong group of friends in the neighborhood. And I was involved in our church. Like I was just very, very active. And of course, around that time, all the invites, you start to get more social and always being invited to birthday parties and I don't know, just things like that. So my mom remembers me being very active as a kid. I also remember being like voraciously interested in media at that time.
Mm.
I had my own magazines. I think I was getting like Highlight Kids still. I might have been too old for Highlight, but I specifically remember the Highlight Scholastic magazine that had a bunch of different subjects from like science to um, like, yeah, science and
Oh my God, that's awesome.
food and like
Just like a
little
Pisces girl.
stories. Yeah, yeah. So it had all of those things, but then I also remember always flipping through like my parents' magazine subscriptions too. We would get like Essence and Ebony and I think that Oprah magazine was around at that time. I remember that being around the house a lot. And yeah, just like being very interested and curious in kind of what was happening in the world through the lens of media and being kind of like the friendly informant. I remember at that time, because I had always been a storyteller. There's a story that my mom likes to tell about me in pre-K. I was supposed to be napping, but I was like reciting the Berenstain Bears like from memory because I had watched those tapes so often
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
was like reciting it to the kids. And then for my pre-K graduation, I actually did like a monologue from Berenstain Bears for my recital. So
Oh
fast
my
forward to age
God.
10, like I was kind of retelling things that I was learning a lot. And I was like always kind of being like, did you know X or did you know X? And it would be based on like stuff I would read in these magazines or, things that I would hear in school. I just kind of always remember like dropping knowledge on people a little bit,
I love that. I
sharing
love
what
that.
I knew. Um, I think too, at the time I was very concerned with like finding my place. I
Mm.
was I think very interested in a lot of things because I was trying to find myself in each of these things. And um, even with friends, I had, when I think back, I've always had just like a mix of friends, like people who look like maybe they don't belong together. So, like, you
Me
know,
too. Yeah, yeah.
it would always be kind of an odd group, but I think I would constantly like seek out or be drawn to things and people and places and ideas that like reflected me. And so, the my life at that time and even at this time now kind of just look like a big like kaleidoscope and collage of a lot of different things that look like they don't quite match, but it all has a feeling that is very much like true and authentic and like real to me.
See, and I love that because when you think about it, Pisces does encompass all 12 signs and it holds
Right.
that energy. And so when I think about a Pisces woman or Pisces man in general, but definitely seen it with the Pisces woman, women. Growing up, my cousin was a Pisces, and then I'm married a Pisces. So I see that kind of like you're like every crayon color, every type of interest. Like it is just like a collage of everything, all coming into a big bowl of Pisces soup that
Mhm.
is really magical. So, can I ask you this? Having Pluto on the ascendant and being a Scorpio rising, right? We share this together, and I just think it's really fascinating in terms of you being in the whole scope of creativity, and we'll get into the acting and the media. having the Pluto and the ascendant, but also being a Scorpio rising, do you feel, number one, and we've talked about this, but you're an empath, but how do you feel energy when you're around other people? Does it almost seem like an X-ray machine where you can see kind of their intentions, or the goodness, or the lack of goodness in someone and their intentions of their soul? Or is it like just kind of like almost like an X-ray vision? Where are you at with that in your journey?
That's so interesting. I would say that it depends, on the context and the person. I think one thing that's pretty consistent with me is being able to see layers of the individual or layers of places. I often refer a lot to um, this way that I like think about the past a lot as a way to kind of like conceptualize my present, and then how I need to like work on, looking towards the future, and I have people in my life, I think, that have like held up that mirror to me and shown me how to practice like looking forward more. But in saying that, I have often like looked at people or just come across people and interactions and been able to like think about or see or feel like their past self, like what they were like as a kid, or what they might still kind of be holding on to as a
Mm,
kid, or what they might still be projecting from their child self
right.
into like the present. And of course, the child is like in the past, right? But I've also looked at people and been able to see like what they might look like when they're old. Like those apps, like you upload a picture and
Yeah, yeah, and
you
the
like,
whole,
"Oh,
yeah,
so what you
because
gonna look
time
like
is
in 30
linear, right? I mean,
years?"
it's like time's not linear. It's like it's all together, right? With
Yeah.
different dimensions. Yeah.
And sometimes that ability or like the moment that I can gauge that is like clearer than others. But I would say that I've been really aware and like more cognizant of trying not to like put people or situations in the box of like good or bad. And that, I don't know, that might
Well,
be,
right, right, and it's so funny because as I said it, I didn't mean it in terms of good or bad, but I
yeah,
think, for example, I know for me, um, I think we're both good at small talk, right?
yeah,
Pisces and Virgos are good at that, but Scorpio risings, we don't really like small talk. We want to get to the
no.
heart of the matter. We want to get to
It's
the
true.
truth.
I'm always the person who wants to have the deep conversation.
Yeah, and that's the
Ask my
Scorpio.
family and
Yeah,
friends. Anytime we get around the table, we're together for holidays, we're having a coffee, I'm
just
like,
just dive
"What's
in.
what's really going on with you?" Like like, let's skip the small talk, like, I immediately either wanna jump into the role of, like, the listener with the big ear, or the shoulder, or the therapist. It's like,
Yeah,
give it all to me, like, unload, and because and I've always known this, like, I have the ability to, like, handle it, but it hasn't necessarily always been, like, the best thing for me to carry it around, and that's one of the things I've learned the most through, like, my Scorpio ascendant sign is, like, I think people are drawn to me and can tell that, like, "Hey, here's a person that I could talk to." I've had many strangers just come up to me and s and say, a common compliment I get is that I have kind of this open face or, like, an open energy, and you just seem easy to talk to, and, like, I am. But I often, I've had people come up to me and just start telling me stuff about deep beliefs or complicated things that they feel, and it's not by any prompting. For me, it starts out as small talk. It just happened, like, this past Sunday,
yeah.
I was in a coffee shop and the gentleman, it was a very crowded coffee shop, this really cool art deco place, in Chicago. If you come, I'll take you there. They have great coffee and it's packed on the weekends. But I
Okay.
went in and there was a small kind of settee, like a two-person couch, and I saw like there was a space available in this crowded place, but I would have to share with this gentleman. So I asked him. He's like, "Oh, no, no, no problem." And he was reading this book. And I noticed it was something that looked really dark and kind of occult on the on the cover. And I said, you know, when I sat down, I said, "Oh, thank you so much. I promise I won't disturb you because I see that you're reading." Of course, I go and get my coffee and sit down, start journaling for like 10 minutes, and then I'm like, "You know what? I apologize. I really can't sit here and not even ask you your name and like, what are you reading?" And I promise within like 10 minutes, we started getting into all of this deep conversation about like the soul of animals and the soul of humans and like thinking about our evolution, our emotional evolution as a species and where is that going, you know? And
I
I'm pretty
love
sure that guy was a water sign. I didn't do my normal party trick.
it. When's your birthday? Da, 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 da.
Even when it's a party of one, but typically I can guess people's like big three. At least two out of the three I always get right. And
Oh,
he
that's
definitely
good.
had
That's
either
good.
Scorpio, sun, or rising with Taurus in there somewhere. But yeah, I it happens to me all the time.
That's so funny. And you know, and that's what happens. Like you know, it's like hashtag astrology lovers. Like because
Yeah.
you start to like see these patterns, even with the ascendants. If you know, I tell people sometimes just Google it. You know, you don't want to focus everything on celebrities, but like you start to see patterns in people's facial structure and their aura that they emit, because that's what the first house is, the ascendant. It is your aura, right? The 6 feet apart. It's, you know, the aura that comes out. And so, you know, for us Scorpios, it's a little bit more magnetic, which, you know, can make people fearful or repelled by us, but
Hmm.
it also can pull people in to be really drawn to us, you know, and I think that's really fascinating. So when did you venture in to becoming an actress? And then I want you to share that, but then share all the different, you know, the amazing projects you've worked on, because you've been on some cool different TV shows and movies.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say that pre-K Berenstain Bears performance.
That set
That
it
was
off.
my
Okay.
first that was my first, like, true performance on stage in front of people, and I was reciting, you know, a script, like, from a film that I really enjoyed, and kind of putting my own, drama spin on it, right? Um, but from there, I really, like, had a lot of opportunities to showcase my talent on stage, whether it was, like, you know, initially it was more academic stuff. I did spelling bee and I did this
Oh.
lit club where we actually memorized passages from books and then we would like recite it from memory. And it was like a competition thing that I did in the fifth grade. And then after that, it was theater and then it was dance. And so I had a lot of growing in performance in my formative
Yeah.
years. And in college, you know, I continued, you know, in dance performance and but my adult, like, acting experience started actually with improv, believe it
Okay,
or
that's
not.
good. That's good.
Yeah, improv was my first sort of formal stint, if you will, into, like, acting, and, that was really something that I did as a way to improve my overall sort of ability to communicate with people, and I thought, you know, this is interesting because in my improv class, there were a lot of people in there that weren't even actors. They were, um, lawyers and dentists and, you know, people who worked in bars and restaurants, and
So other
they
professionals
weren't, like,
who really
pursuing
wanted to jump
acting
in, and yeah, that's
yeah, as a
awesome.
job, but they saw improv as a way to improve their relational and communication
It
skills, and
totally does,
it
yeah.
really did that. It really did that for me. Um,
Well, you know, a lot of lawyers will take acting classes, right?
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I highly recommend actually everyone take an acting class. Um, it really gets you to practice with listening.
Yes.
Um,
That's what I always say.
it's a huge
Actors
part.
are great listeners because you have
Yeah,
to listen before you can say your line. You have to know what else
exactly,
is coming.
and choosing how you're really going to respond.
Yeah.
Um, so I highly recommend it. It also for me with acting, it started too when I was street cast for a Sprite commercial. So I was doing the improv stuff, you know, kind of as like a professional development thing, but I actually lost my job in 2015. I was fired from this miserable place that I hated. Oh my gosh, Eric, I hated working at this place.
Oh,
But a series of things kind of happened. I had to take some medical leave. Like when I came back, I was like being fired from this job, and it was really a blessing in disguise. But
Right.
I was hanging around at a store in Hyde Park. My boyfriend owned a store at that time in Hyde Park, and they happened to be having like a model casting there. And I was like, oh, and I didn't know anything about it, but the producers that came in and they were taking the pictures, they asked me if I wanted to take one. Now, mind you, I didn't have on any makeup. It's like the summer, middle of the summer. I'm wearing like a tank top. I had just gotten my hair cut. I had like a really fly kind of fade with like a slight mohawk on the top kind of haircut. So it really, like, you could really see my face with that haircut. So that was the only thing I think like that was going for me in my mind where I was
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, I'll take a picture because like I have this fly new haircut.
Yeah.
And I was cast to be in this Sprite commercial.
That's awesome.
It was like a Sprite and Seagram's holiday commercial, and they had taken photos of like 600 women, and they cast
Wow.
me. And then I
There
did
you
the
go.
shoot, and the same people, the advertising agency that was shooting it, they were also doing McDonald's commercials. And they went back to the agent that cast me and said, "Hey, can we get Jessica back for McDonald's?" And that's when the agent at that time, they were like, "Well, we have to sign you now." Because before you were just like a street cast model because that's the client required, but now like we need to represent you because you're booking work just like offset like that. Like, yeah, we're gonna book you. So that launched my
Oh, so you
modeling
signed with
career.
what was the agency?
It was called Planet Earth Agency at that time. Now they folded the agency and they're called Trigger Casting, so they're a casting agency now.
Oh, okay.
But
So what
Julie
was the
Santamaria
McDonald's
was my
commercial?
first agent.
What
Where
was
was it?
well, what was the McDonald's commercial? Like, what,
Oh, the
quarter
McDonald's
pounder or like
commercial was me playing this, like, very cute suburban mom with 2 little kids that I looked way too young to have, but we were on this big house, like, big kind of outdoor patio, and it was for Happy Meals. It was, like, to promote Happy Meals. It was really,
that
really cute.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
I still have those pictures, but that was back
But
in
that must have been fun and
2015.
exciting, and as us actors know, hey, those commercial checks, they can be really
Oof.
nice.
Yeah, and I did that. I did print modeling and commercials for like 7 years
Okay.
before I was cast in my first real independent film, which was Pictures Only, and I got cast in that film in 2019. Or no, it was 2020 actually.
Now, pictures only, where could people find that at and watch it?
So Pictures Only is a short film. It's a 1950s period piece. It's on Amazon Prime.
Okay, cool.
It's set in Chicago. I think I love that. I love that it's 1950s Chicago.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that was my first short film. Charles Honeywood was the director and writer of that film. And since then, we have been in 30 plus film festivals
Whoa,
since that came out in 2020. And I've had a chance to travel with my director, with Charles, who's become a dear friend, and sit
that's
on
awesome.
panels with him and talk about our work in that film. And that I don't I think at the time I thought, oh, this is like, a small little short film, and I think that this is a great story and I love the character. I played an artist in the film,
Okay.
Josephine, who's like a bit of a caged bird, but she's like a bit snobby, and she's got some great lines, like really powerful lines that kind of make you think about where we were in society at that time.
Right, right.
Um, and it also kind of began this portfolio for me of being like the having being in a character that played like a major supporting to the lead, but the kind that really makes you think about the character long after the film is over.
Yeah.
And we've
Tho
all seen those movies
Oh,
where
those are
you're
the
like,
best, yeah.
yeah, those are the best. And
Yeah, because
so,
that's sometimes you don't, the leads are the leads, but the supporting sometimes they'll have these moments that they just steal the whole thing.
yeah. Yeah, the major supporting people oftentimes are the ones who help deliver the lessons, the big aha moments, the funniest, kind of pivotal,
Transitions and changes. Yeah.
transitions in the film. Exactly. So
That's
I've had
awesome.
the pleasure of being in a few of those roles since 2020. And so Pictures Only is on Amazon Prime. Also, I'm in a rom-com called Three Dates to Forever.
Yes, that one I
I
saw. That
play
was a good one, you guys.
yeah,
Tell them
I
everything about
play
that. That one was so good. You were so, and you know what's so funny? It was just like, it was like watching it. I was like, oh, that's Jessica. But it was just like, you seemed so natural. Like you, that's one thing that I think about having that Pisces sun in the fifth house. You are natural in how you creatively express yourself, and that's a talent in itself. You know what I mean? And I think it's almost like I envision your chart when I saw you in that film, where I'm just like, she's in this creative artistic flow, but it's just like you weren't just, you know what I mean? Obviously you weren't
yeah,
Jessica, but
I was B. I played B Brooks, the highly caffeinated, kind of boy crazy radio producer,
yeah,
but very dreamy. And honestly, it's interesting. My casting is very relevant to me as a person and the things that I'm naturally good at. I've been cast as a therapist before. I've been cast often as the professional, who's like a little bit quirky or kind of has a wild idea about something. And that is very me. So this year I'm challenging myself to like stretch my casting a little bit more. I feel like my dream role is like this unassuming, like kind of intellectual who's been like kicking butt at night, like like the secret agent, I want a role that's like really physical, I love this whole idea of like actors being transformed for a role, and I would love the challenge of doing something like that, like
totally.
where I'm like
And
unrecognizable.
just, see, that's so what's so fun and exciting. And hearing you just even talk about it, it's like, oh, my juices start flowing. And I think about all my, television, film, and theater days, and I miss
Yeah,
it. Because
yeah.
what people don't get, and I want you to speak about this because I think it's really important in terms of, most people see the finished product on Amazon, in the movie theater, or here or there, or to go to the theater, live theater. But I know for me, I always loved the nooks and crannies of the 4 or 5 a.m. call times, or the like on set for so many hours, and then you and the cast, like you literally share like your life stories with people that like you
Yeah.
may only work with for like 2 weeks or like a month. And it's such a magical thing being part of a production, a film, a story, and all the work that goes into it, from like this cast of like, because you could, I want you to share the film set is like, I mean, you get every type of walk of life,
Oh
from the
yeah.
grips to the sound to like everybody's art, sound, wardrobe. And speak about the magic of
Oh my
making
gosh.
something and then getting to watch it afterwards.
Yeah, and I wanna speak real quick to, what you're saying. As actors, we bring so much to the role that never gets seen or, like, talked about sometimes,
Mhm.
until we start, like, talking about the work later. But I know for me with Pictures Only, that was, it was a short film, it was 20 minutes long. I filmed for one day, it wasn't like this long sort of process on set, but I actually studied and prepared for 6 months before that one day on set.
Yeah.
And, I was getting myself in the mindset in the framing of like 1950s. I was an artist in the film in the 1950s in Chicago, doing my research in history, what was happening at that time. It was sort of past the golden era of Black arts and culture, in Bronzeville. The economy was changing, civil rights was sort of emerging. All of these things are sort of happening. And I was looking at that through like listening to music at that time, through going back and like looking at YouTube videos of the leaders at that time in America. I was going at vintage shopping. I was looking at, clothing from the 1950s. And then eventually I did what I called an essence photo shoot. And this is something that I haven't done actually for any other role. I'm going to do it again at some
Okay.
point, but I got some creative people together and we actually created like a photo shoot capturing my character in her life. And
I
this was
love
before
that.
I even got with costume for pictures only. This was before I even knew really what they were intending to bring to life. But for me
Wow.
as the actor, I was deciding at that time what energy, what personality, what was I gonna bring to the character based on what was reading in the script. And that
Right.
really informed a lot of what I delivered on set. Now, film is very much like a filmmaker, writer, director's medium
Yeah.
because the actor doesn't really control what the audience sees at the end of the day. You
Yeah.
know, I've been on film sets where we've done 30 takes of one scene, you know, and like
Oh
at the end
God.
of the day, it's not up to me which one gets chosen.
Yeah.
It's the director's decision. It's the
Yeah.
people who are doing all of the post production work that determine the look and feel and the vibe and the order of how all of those things are happening. Now, theater is a totally different ballgame.
No, that's where we get to
Theater is the
dominate and
actor's
shine.
medium.
Yeah.
That is acting right in your face, immediate feedback. That
So and it's so much
scares me a
fun too.
little.
You know, I tell people like theater it's daunting, it's hard work, but in terms of the instant gratification and the immediate reward,
Yeah.
oh, it's the best for that. In terms of just getting your acting chops out and the adrenaline of it. I
Yes.
remember, I got to just share this with you because I want to know if you've experienced this, but I remember one night we were on Theater Row in Times Square and I'm performing and doing a play called The Small Potatoes. And it was loosely based on the Inspector General from Nikolai Gogol. And it's really a brilliant play. And we got reviewed, had my picture in the New York Times. But one night, one of my co-stars, we were sharing a scene together and she forgot her line.
Mhm.
And then this is where my improv skills kicked in.
Mhm.
So what I did, and also being a freestyle MC, as a hip hop guy, what I did was I circled back to give her the feed in prompt line,
Yep.
but I did it in a way so the audience wouldn't know that she forgot her line. So
Mhm.
I kind of like changed the word of my dialogue, but then gave her the feed in line, but just with a
Mhm.
different tone, right?
Yep.
And then I saw the light turn on in her head, and then she remembered and then was able to get back on script. And when we got backstage, she looked at me and she almost had a tear in her eye and she was like, "That was incredible." She
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
"Thank you. I've
With
never had
theater.
another actor do that for me."
Mhm.
She's like, "You saved my butt out there, but that was so creative and brilliant. You were amazing." And I was like, "Oh my
Awesome.
God, thank you." And I was like, "Yeah, I
Woo.
just was on the spur of the moment. That's all I could think of to do was how could I read cycle so I could keep it away from the audience." And it was just like a me you thing, but we were still going on. And she caught it. We went on and it was perfect. And like, have you ever experienced any of those type of moments and share like what has been like your live as an adult live theater experience?
Yeah, I mean, theater is very much a team sport, and it can be, you work with all types of actors, like you just said, people from all different backgrounds and people who have different motivations and intentions. I think really like getting to know people that you're working with is a huge part of what will make you successful, you know. I definitely have been in rooms with people who just play the power card over and over, and you know that they're not going to probably help you. They're willing to let other people around them look bad so that they can
Mhm.
shine, for
Yeah,
example. And so knowing and understand how to navigate that in this industry as well as like in any other, really, this is
yeah,
why I say like improv and theater are so helpful for understanding relational dynamics and communication
yeah,
in whatever arena you're working in. And it can allow you to do that in a playful way. But also just this idea of like how we extend the olive branch to people or how we support one another
yeah,
in creative ways, and how much that makes us feel good. I think it's just like a reminder that it's important, like, to nurture and support other people in their art, other people in their walk. When you're on stage, you have 2 completely different roles that you're playing, but oftentimes one can't be there without the other, so having that sort of like more communal mindset is, um, I think, really helpful. But you had asked about the magic I was thinking, my mind immediately went back to when I was on the set for Law and Order, and I was on the 23rd episode or 23rd season of the original Law and Order. So Law and Order, not crime, not criminal intent,
Yeah.
not
You see, and I worked on Law and Order a few times, and when you told me
yeah.
you did it, I was just like, wow, that's
It is
so.
a well-oiled machine. I
Oh,
mean, after
it is.
23 seasons, it is just like a massive dance that is happening all around.
Yeah,
And the people that I worked with on set were so nice, and everybody, I think, just was really secure, obviously, in their job because this thing had been on
yeah.
for 23 seasons. But I remember coming onto set and I played a reporter, and I was super excited because there were only 2 other reporters in the scene with me, and Tony Goldwyn he's the star. He's like the new DA.
Okay.
And it was amazing because I was getting a chance to talk to Tony Goldwyn on camera, knowing that I had been in acting school actually rehearsing a lot of scenes from Scandal, because my acting teacher at that school was like, "You need to watch everything Kerry Washington is doing. This is like your casting realm."
Oh
And
my
so I
God.
started practicing scenes from Scandal with my classmate who was portraying Tony Goldwyn's character. And then here I am on set with the real Tony Goldwyn. So that was a
That
magical
is so
moment.
awesome, and
But
that was one of my favorite shows ever,
oh
though.
my gosh. But like a cool thing was when they yelled action, the very first time that we did the scene, we're all out in like this beautiful courthouse
Yeah.
lobby, and they cued all the extras, and I had totally forgot, but they cued the extras to come out, and then suddenly the whole world of Law& and Order just, like, came onto the set. That was a magical moment to me, and then in between takes, you're waiting for everybody to reset, and there's a few minutes, and you hear these extras talking, and these people live, like, extraordinary lives.
Yeah. Oh
They're
no, definitely.
yeah, the extras are sometimes, like, the most interesting people there because, they
Always,
all have done
always.
stuff kind of in entertainment, but then they've, you know, just, I don't know, had a lot of different jobs that they've done, and people who do extras work, like, really enjoy just the extra stuff, you know? They like
Well,
being on
you
set
know
to
what
kind
it
of meet
is?
people and, you know I don't know, it's just, like, a different way to be, like, connecting and being, like, out in the world, I
Well,
guess.
let me say that because I was the professional actor in New York City, and I'm in the Screen Actors Guild. And as I'm auditioning for feature roles and speaking roles, and I would do stand-in, like I stood in for Savion Glover on Bamboozled. And then I
Okay.
did a stunt on there with Savion and Tommy Davis, and when they're climbing down the fire escape in the beginning of movie or whatever.
Yeah.
I kind of got jerked though out of my stunt pay, so that's a whole nother
Wow.
conversation. I got a bone to pick with Spike and the union with that one, but
Yeah.
that happens so much in the industry. You don't always get the honor sometimes that you're supposed to do. But anyway, that's what it is that you know as you're auditioning and trying to get these principal roles, you will do background work. And when you are in the union and you're doing background work, you take it very serious compared to non-union. I was like a professional,
Yeah.
but you're making, you're there for certain hours, you're making good money because you're in the union. And the cast of characters that I met, I'm still friends with so many of them on Facebook, but the experiences were so vast. And I've worked with pretty much not all but most of the celebrities that are still out there today, and I've been around Angela Bassett and Meryl Streep and Harrison Ford and Renee Zellweger and all these different people, Gwyneth Paltrow on the Royal Tenenbaums. And it is so fascinating. And you're right, the lives. But I think what you said is so poignant, and I really see that in your chart with the Neptune and Capricorn, right? And that's kind
Mhm.
of like you bringing the creativity and the imagination and spiritual gifts into like the business setting, right? Through your communications. And so that connects with like that kind of magic that you saw when you said the Law and Order coming together. Now, that experience, but then share with the audience, didn't you also work on Showtime on The Shy?
I did. Yeah, I worked on The Shy. That
What
was
was that like?
that was so amazing how that all came together. Casting is really strict, like if you are going up for like a co-star role and you don't have full availability for when they're going to shoot that scene or that episode, they will just automatically throw you off the casting list
Oh yeah.
because they want to have people who are fully available through this 3-week window in case there's any changes with production. Well, last year I went to Mexico for a whole month, like leading up to my birthday. And so I was going to be gone for a large part of the casting of that episode. I think I was only available for 2 of the days. And it was crazy because I worked really hard on that audition. Of course, like I played a doctor to the main character, Keisha and her baby. So I was really a pediatrician. And I had to deliver some hard news in my scene. And so I
Really?
did like research on how doctors deliver tough news. Like YouTube helps you find anything. First of all, I just want to say,
Yeah.
I like looked up like how to deliver bad news to patients.
YouTube University's got it all, right?
Yeah, and like John Hopkins had like a whole series of like films that they made, I guess, for their residents. It
Wow.
was so good. I mean, it was really good, and I felt like, "Wow, I'm getting, you know, informations from John Hopkins, like, for
Real
free."
world experience, yeah.
Yeah, and so I used that as my research, and then I worked really hard on the audition, got the call back, or actually, I think I was placed on hold for it right away, but it was still like a week out from me leaving, and so I was like, "Okay, well, we'll see what happens." They're probably, like, gonna throw me off the casting because I'm not gonna be available for most of it. I'm only available for 2 of the scheduled shoot dates, and when I tell you I was blown away, my agent called me on the phone, it was 10 o'clock at night and said, "Hey, casting says you're the first choice. Any way you can rearrange your travel." Now, I'm a person who will figure out how to be flexible and make it work, but the way I tell you my travel was set up, like, I was traveling through multiple different places in Mexico. There was no way that I could fix it. Like, I couldn't
Oh my
change
god.
any part of my trip. It wasn't gonna matter because even if I had extended a week, I still would have not been available for a large part of the shoot dates. And so I just kinda stuck to my guns and I said, "I'm so sorry, like, I can't change any of this travel." And I kinda just wrote it off, and literally 2 days later, I got the email saying that I had been booked, and I thought, "Okay, this was just God in the universe because
Wow. That and,
that
and
does
and
not happen."
let me
My
tell
agent
everybody watching the podcast, you guys, that is extremely rare. So not only
Yeah.
did they really want you, are you telling me that they like scheduled your shoot
Yes,
days?
I was the first day so that we can get it out of the way, and then I could go on my trip the next day.
Wow.
It was
And you're
totally
not
worth
even
it.
like a main character
No,
in the series. So
exactly.
that is, yeah,
I
that
was a
is
co-star, and I was with Keisha. It was me, Keisha, and her and the baby on the show. Little Ronnie is his
now,
name.
is the show still running?
Yeah, it's still running. I believe they just got signed for a new season, that's coming
Because
out
I
this
haven't
summer.
seen it in years, and I stopped having Showtime, and then I missed it, and
Oh, well,
I
it's on
wanna
Paramount Plus now too, if you have Paramount
okay, well, I
Plus.
wanna go back not only to see your episode, but The Chi used to be my show.
It's good. It's
It's a
really good.
good
I think it gets
show.
better and better every season, especially the
Really?
guest stars are so cool. You just see so many people that you're excited about on the show.
Okay.
Um, and my episode was season 6, episode 10.
Okay,
Oh, no,
so that
13,
was season 6.
13.
What do you think they're up to season 7 now or 8?
They're on 8. Yeah, I believe they're filming
Wow.
8 now.
And
Yeah.
I think I've only seen the first 2 or 3, so
It got better since seasons 1, 2, and 3. It's definitely evolved a lot.
really?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, so how happy well, number 1, how happy were you? And then did it, like, make your vacation that much more better?
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine? Like, that was my first TV job, and last year was a great year for me because I had 2 jobs, like, that were on big shows.
Yeah, that was last year's Law& and Order and Shy?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
huge.
and then I was still, like, doing commercial work, I was still doing some independent film stuff, and I was starting to get more into this producer world, working with documentary filmmakers and being invited to speak on panels. Last year was a really big year for me. But yeah, talk about like setting off on a good foot, with my vacation. And the month away was really kind of an end of the year sabbatical for me. So end of my work year, start of my personal year is like kind of how I was thinking of it. And I really wanted to reward myself because I've had my business, the PR handler, now since 2020 officially. I
Okay.
had the brand since 2018, but at that time it had been 4 years of me like hustling and figuring out how to get my company off the ground and be stable. And I realized like I had never formally taken like a vacation. Yeah, like I set my own schedule and I take days off or,
Right, right. But
none
like,
of my days look the same, but I had never like granted myself like a vacation, you know?
wow.
And also, I realized like, oh, like companies, you go work for a company, they pay your vacation. I was like, you know what? Let me see how the PR handler can pay for my vacation.
I know that's right.
So that's what I did, and it was amazing. I spent some of the time really thinking a lot about what I've accomplished in the PR handler over these past 4 years. Um, some of the bigger wins and challenges, some of the best kind of stories that have come out of my work, some of the more intrinsic values that have been garnered from this practice, such as like just building very deep and fruitful relationships. A lot of my work has been project based over these past 4 years, and I'm just now in my fifth year getting into longer term contracts, which is something that I didn't want at the beginning. I wanted to just be like footloose and fancy free all the time and like have
Right.
short term projects so that I can have a wide variety too. And I was getting my feet wet with a lot at the beginning, but now I'm kind of settled in and taking some longer term contracts. But yeah, it was like a great opportunity for me to kind of shift and think, okay, what do I want to do moving forward? I've been doing a lot of media relations as sort of my special service through the PR handler. Most people hire me because they want to be like mentioned in the press. They want features written about them in magazines or in the local
So, honey,
newspaper.
I want you to share your website. Everything's going to
Yeah,
be down below in the description for you guys to read, but just share that in terms of if someone's interested in getting PR and give us a little list of different types of people or clients that you work with. Because some people don't really know what, PR is, public relations, and what a publicist does. So please share
yeah.
that and how they can contact you.
I mean, PR is largely about shaping and delivering your story, the best, your best showing your best angles, if you will, through the press. A lot of people hire publicists when they're ready to announce something new, when they are ready to cultivate and strengthen new and existing audiences that they have through inviting people to something or delivering a new product or making an offer, right? I think that everybody could probably use like a consultation or have a chat with a publicist at some point because really PR is about building a strong reputation. And I always tell clients the best advertising vehicle is still word of mouth. But publicists help you to shape a story and to build an offering that you can disseminate through platforms such as traditional media or even social media that will give people a good feeling about you or that will prompt someone to tell someone else about you, right? I was just at like this artisan market a couple weeks ago. I was walking around like with my little GoPro because I think I'm trying to put together some like reels to start a YouTube channel this year. I don't know what I'm doing,
I
but
love it.
I brought a GoPro and so I was walking around with it and I saw this vendor, these guys out of Greece, they sell like this amazing olive oil. And they also sell it at my local farmers markets. When I walked by, I was like, yo, there were people standing there. And I was like, this is the best olive oil ever.
Yeah.
And it wasn't me being like the PR handler. It was me just honestly having a real reaction to the product
Yeah.
because it truly is like the best olive oil I've ever tasted. They also have like this amazing honey that has
Mm.
like vanilla and like all of these different flavors in it, and it's medicinal. And
Oh.
I talked to the owner and he didn't remember me. And I was just like, hey, like I buy you guys' stuff from the local farmer's market in my neighborhood. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, thanks for the great PR. Now, again, he doesn't know what I do,
Yeah.
and I wasn't like, I think naturally, again, being the friendly informant, right? It's a very much a part of who I am. But people doing that about you, your product, your brand is what you want to be happening continuously. You want a buzz kind of happening about what you offer. And because word of mouth is still the most powerful, because people always want like a trusted recommendation from somebody who they think has great taste or who they think is well
Exactly.
informed. So yeah, having a consultation with me to just think about how to put your best foot forward, if you will, across all your different platforms so that you can pique the interest of somebody, who's existing in your audience or a newcomer, would be a very good use of your time. So I'll offer that. On my website, I have on the prhandler.com a calendar where you can set up just like a Zoom consultation with me, a quick coffee chat, if you will. And I normally charge for those, but if you're part of Big E Astrology's community, you can just email me and let me know that, and we could set up a 20-minute chat for sure.
Oh, no, that's awesome. Thank you for that. But I want to ask you about that in the sense that do you find now with PR and just media, are there pros and cons, or what's the difference? I mean, obviously, we know social media, right? This was the first podcast election.
Yeah.
Things were changed, right? Going on, Trump on Joe Rogan and this and that and all these different podcasts. And in some ways, he played it better than Kamala, where she didn't go on certain podcasts and she probably should have. What are your thoughts in terms of when you're dealing with a product or an event? How do you, as a publicist, kind of weigh the scales? Is social media going to be more important, or is traditional media, or now is it more a blending of the both?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a blend, and I think you have to be intentional because it's based on what you want to sell. For example, if you want people to buy tickets to a local event, you want to focus on media outlets that are going to target people who live in your area.
Yeah.
So with social media, you can do that very easily because there's settings that say, okay, I want to reach people within this certain range. But, seeing someone on TV, or learning about something because you heard it on the radio is still very much a thing. And I think traditional media gets embedded in the subconscious a little bit differently. And maybe
Mm,
it's because of like still how we see like, you know, television is still like a bigger, more important medium in a sense. Like it adds more notoriety to see someone on TV
right.
versus seeing someone on social media, because anybody can be on social media.
Right,
Not
right.
everybody can be on TV. So I think that receiving that information through television or through radio or something that's more traditional, even a magazine that you hold in your hand, it gets remembered differently than when you just came across something on social, because we're constantly swiping and it can be
Right.
very
And,
easy to forget.
and I'm more traditional, but I got to say, I am sort of getting more and more each day, Jessica. In
Yeah,
2025, I'm more surprised than ever. The power and influence, though, that
of
social
social.
media is having. Like, it's
Yeah, it has immense influence. And I think social media is great. Everyone can participate. I always tell people, start with who you got. Like one of the biggest frustrations I see with clients is people trying to figure out how to amass like these large followings right away. And it's like micro communities are just as powerful and just as impactful. You get a small army of people like really believing in what you do. That
if they all
causes a
show up and
ripple
support it,
effect.
that's what it matters.
Yeah, it causes a really big ripple effect, and it could have um, immediate impact. Um, I think that there's like an audience too that feels more inclined to being in niche, like kind of in niche spaces, or you know, being in being aware of things that everyone else doesn't know about.
Right,
And
right, right.
that's
Like
very much
this
like
is our tribe. This is
yeah,
our
this is
clique.
more try like this is more if you know, you know what I mean? This isn't like mainstream. This is for like specific people. And I think that that has a lot of power too. So, leaning into who you are, and like the more specific you can be, similar to acting, right? The more powerful your delivery is going to be. And you're going to draw people who get you exactly, like they get exactly what you're doing, because you're not trying to appeal to everyone necessarily. And I think that communities like that have longer staying power, and people who are tuning in more regularly, than the channels that have like big mass, followings necessarily. We know about those, and we know about, maybe some of the messaging or ideas. Maybe those things are in everyday conversation, about, for example, like the Joe Rogan podcast and stuff. People were talking about him a lot in this last election. But, you know, there's definitely a lot of power in being able to cultivate a small and mighty community, or at least starting with that and investing in it, because that has the potential to grow and develop a very authentic audience that will follow you on your journey. Even as you change and evolve, that audience will want to stay with you because they like you, the person.
Well, yeah, and now with us being right in the, as I say, pinky toe in the water, the beginning stages of Pluto Aquarius, that's not only the number one vibration and frequency, but that's what's going to really be the main fuel and like the number one like attention grabber for the next 20 years is authenticity. Just
Yeah.
be you. Don't
Yeah.
it won't pay for you to emulate and copy other people. You're weird, you're bizarre, go be it. Like
Yeah.
you be you, and people will match that frequency, and your tribe, your community will come.
They'll find you. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so incredible. So I want to find out, as we get ready to wind down, I want to find out for you, what you kind of hinted to it, but like, what would what do you see yourself potentially wanting to get into more with acting this year? And have you ever thought of writing your own script? Or do you want to get into like directing something? Or would you do like a one-woman show? Like, what types of creative things are in the works for Miss Jessica Gillespie? I'm
One
kind of
woman
curious.
show. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, I would know, because let me tell you
That
something.
is really in the
I was going to do
stars.
a one-man show, and I'm so upset myself. I've never done it. The title was E, the Energetic Enigma.
Whoa.
And then wait, and
Okay.
it was so crazy. I'm the second deacon Virgo that is called the Week of the Enigma.
Hmm.
Couldn't make that
Did
up.
you know the connection before?
No, I found it out when I first started to get into astrology years ago in college. I found this astrology book that I got rid of once I became a born again Christian, and I regret getting rid of it, but I did, and I haven't found it again. I mean, it was like 300-400 pages. It's a huge book, and they would break down the deacons, like, so Virgo 1 from like the 23rd to like the 1st, and Virgo 2 from like the
Yeah.
2nd to the 11th, and so that's the Virgo Capricorn deacon. That's me. And the title of that week, it's the Week of the Enigma. And
Huh.
that, and I had written out like my one-man show. It was going to be E for Eric, E, the Energetic Enigma. And that blew me away.
That's
And then
fascinating.
when I read it, I felt like somebody had been, because like with astrology, you can just be into sun sign astrology. But then when you start to learn more, that's where the layers, like it just comes, and you're just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And it blows your mind. But that, just reading that description of the Virgo 2, the second deacon, it made me feel like I was in the Truman Show, like somebody had been recording and watching my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because I was like,
yeah.
because astrology it's the map of your life. It's the remembrance of your soul. And so, you know, what's next on the acting front
I
for me?
mean, I just got some new headshots. I went to New York to shoot with a new photographer, and I
Cool.
wanted just like new look and feel for my headshots because I had been using, the same ones for the past 3 years. So I'm like, let me just, get some headshots with a totally different look. So I shot in the braids.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to be, submitting auditions and, getting back into that whole thing for sure. This year, I mean, I really would like to participate in film festivals more. sitting on panels, maybe being a moderator. I'm
Mm.
so hungry to talk to people about their experience making film and being in their creative process. You know, I think this is something that I've done a lot as a publicist that translates very easily in the film industry. Just being a person who um, like interviews, right? And last year I had an opportunity to cover the Chicago International Film Festival. I covered the red carpet, and I had a chance to talk to Malcolm Washington at the premiere of the piano lesson in Chicago. And I talked to a bunch of other filmmakers during that time, and I selected my top five, films from the Black Perspectives program at the festival that you should catch. And actually, they're all out now, like on streaming. So I'll share the
Yeah.
article with you too. You can put it in your show notes. But definitely, like writing more about film, being in conversation more publicly about film would be a next phase for me, sort of blending those two worlds together. And yeah, I really I think this is my year of like booking the series regular.
There
So
you go. I like that.
there, I don't know if it's going to be like something on the web or if it's going to be like actual TV series, but this feels like the year that's going to happen for me. I'm also very open into, dabbling in theater again. I auditioned for a couple of theater projects last year, and I was in one in 2020, right before the pandemic happened. But I'm
Mhm.
more open to that now. I'm definitely more
That's
open
good.
to getting back
Yeah.
into the theater. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. And also training. I'm definitely getting more into my skill sets. Every actor should always be building up their skills.
Yeah.
So this year I'm working on second languages, Spanish specifically, and then also just dance, staying like fresh with my dance abilities. So hip hop, modern, jazz, these are all dance genres that I practiced as a
Right.
younger person and, kind of continue to be connected to dance
Right.
through performance. Last year I was in global carnival event that we hosted here in Chicago,
Okay.
as part of a Music That Moves initiatives here. And
Sure.
unfortunately, it was like the one day it rained, like all
Oh,
summer.
no.
We went through a drought, and then like the one day it rained was the day of this performance. But it was amazing. So
Well,
finding my way back to performance in different ways, like different mediums of performance, is something that I'm very excited about this year.
that is so and see, this is what people don't realize. People don't know as actors, we have, all these categories that we list of things we can do in our toolbox on our resume. And, having these skills to be sharp, because you can get an audition and whatever's on your resume, they want to know you can really do it.
Yeah,
And so it's
yeah,
important, when you say you can swim or you play basketball or dance or volleyball or karate, that you can do it,
yeah,
because you may get a job doing exactly what's on your resume and get a call for it. And I've had that happen to me, and it is fascinating. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Or be
So
asked to do it in an audition.
yeah, no, that's so awesome, and I love how you shared that with the audience. And I just love all that you're doing and in this space. And I think that it's really important how you're entrenched, in your local community in Chicago. And I see that with your Neptune and Capricorn. As we wind down, I'm kind of curious, with the Uranus and Sag in the second house, do you feel sometimes that you are getting downloads when you're communicating with other people, or when you're in the flow of like sharing, and like, because you said being on panels and stuff, and Uranus
Yeah,
Sag second house is communication, like your speech. And I could see where that could be like, it's almost like it's you, but it's like a outer body experience for you, where
yeah,
you're getting these visions and downloads. Like, how does that play? Like,
all
have
the
you seen
time.
that play out for you?
My mind is constantly extrapolating downloads from people's communication and just in
Yeah.
conversation. It's very difficult to wrangle sometimes, which is often when I'm in a situation where I'm moderating a panel or I'm interviewing somebody, I come with notes to keep me on track. And
Okay.
even when I have to have difficult conversations or I have to have an intentional conversation with someone, um, I've taken to actually making it a practice of writing it out first,
Mm.
and having some sort of outline with where I wanna go because I can so easily get a download, sometimes these things are useful, sometimes they're way out in left field somewhere,
It
and I'm just
had
like,
nothing to do with
it
the
makes
subject.
no sense, like, to bring that up right now. That will totally throw off everything and take us off somewhere else we don't need
Ah,
to go.
yeah.
So, that is actually being aware of that, that placement has helped me figure out ways to better hone that area of my personality, of my habits with communicating, of being better able to communicate in ways that are understandable and also to understand others better. Um, I think it's also a focus thing too. I don't know if that placement makes it so that, yeah, I kind of space out sometimes.
Well, Uranus is, it controls the central nervous system and it is getting downloads. It's the, god of the sky, Saturn, Cronus,
Yeah,
the father. So, and it's around your speech. And for Scorpio risings, having Sag in the second house, we are natural philosophers and teachers and preachers, and our speech can be very like expansive, but also like important, right? We're seeking
yeah,
higher knowledge. And so I think that that's really with the Uranus, it can be liberating and freedom and breaking the social norms, fracturing the constraints of these structures and these systems. And it can be very groundbreaking. So that's why I think it is good that you kind of come with like an organized thing. But I'm sure, whether it's a download that can be helpful or one that is, for like 10 interviews later,
yeah.
it's good to have that format to organize you. But I think that you could also get a lot of insight that maybe others cannot get, having that placement there, almost like that decoder of language that is like receiving what's unspoken from someone.
Yeah, I think it's helpful over the long term with documenting downloads and even through dreams. I have very vivid dreams, and I think I get a lot of insights through dreams. And so I've made it a habit to write those things down
That's
and
good.
keep a book because over time I do see patterns and connecting dots, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is something that I'm supposed to know, like for real. This isn't like random.
Oh, there's nothing random, right? I
Yeah,
mean, it's like,
yeah. But
oh my
sometimes it
God.
could feel that way in the current context. You're like, "Wait, where'd that come from?"
I love that. Okay, so as we wrap up, just share your website again, and then where people can find, the Shy, the Law and Order, and your independent, 2 independent films you did and stuff.
Yeah, there's links to my projects on my personal Instagram.
Yeah,
It's Jess
and I'm gonna
Patrice.
have it, yeah, in
Yeah.
the description. But tell them your Instagram and stuff as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Jess Patrice. You gotta put the ITS, Jess Patrice. So you can find links to my projects on my bio there, and you can just follow me and see, like, kind of my everyday musings. I haven't actually posted in my feed in a while, but I'm always in my stories. And then you can find me on my website, The PR Handler, if you're interested in my PR work or PR services. You can also book, a short coffee consultation with me, and just tell me about what projects you're working on, and we can chat and see if maybe we can work together. There's info about ways that I work and my services on my website. So you can find all that information there. And yeah, if people are in Chicago, I love meeting in person. I even say that on my website. I think at the time, we were obviously like in the pandemic, but I was getting so sick of like, all these Zoom conversations. And now
Yeah.
that we're really like, we could really be out in the streets now. It's like,
And,
let's meet up for a tea or coffee. I love it. I've got great recommendations for things to get into here in Chicago. So if actually you're just a traveler and you're very interested, you're coming here soon, hit me up. I'd love to give you some recommendations of places to go that aren't necessarily on all the lists that you'll discover if you just look up things to do in Chicago. So
That is so awesome. Well,
Yeah.
Jessica, this was more than insightful and fun. And I just thank you for joining me for this amazing episode. And you guys check out all her stuff. She's good. She's really, really talented. And she's very spiritual, creative. And yeah, you definitely want to connect with her with the PR and any advice, because she's like the unspoken mayor of Chicago. Okay.
No.
She'll hook you up good if you go into
I will
Chi
definitely
Town.
hook you up. Yeah, I will
Or as I
definitely.
like to call it, Shy Illa. So thank you guys for watching my Knowledge is Love Astrology podcast, episode 301, with the amazing Miss Jessica Gillespie. Again, thank you, Jessica. This was awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.